Okay, so it's funny. It seems like I'm not surprised at this anymore, but it seems like um, when the initial awakening finally became very clear, um, people started appearing, and they were at that point where they were ready to let go into that, or the pointing was effective. Um, and it seems to be the case now that after the no self thing, Anatta has clarified the people who are ready for, or at least ready to hear about that, appear. And there seems to be like a readiness here to talk about it, whereas there was something preventing me from talking about it before directly. It's also funny that when I was listening back to one of the videos there, editing it, and sometimes I'm like, how did I say these things? Like, how did I know to say that? Like, sometimes I don't believe that the sentences that come out my mouth, because it really doesn't feel like something that, one, I don't have any recollection of what I talk about during the videos. So like when I film them and organise them, each video, I can't remember what I talked about in it, so I need to watch a bit of it to figure out what the topic is. And also, it doesn't feel like I know what I'm talking about. It's not like an intellectual understanding. I just start speaking, and again, that emphasises the point that this isn't something that I know what I'm talking about. It's not something that I've consciously and cognitively learned and I'm now relaying to the viewer. I guess it's just experience talking to itself. It's so strange that way, but that's what's enjoyable about it, because I don't have to be stuck to a format. I just talk. Talk from my felt understanding. Something else I wanted to emphasise, and I've said this so many times, and I think this, if there's anything that I would like to emphasise, it would be this, and it really feels like something that I should be able to just say, and whoever's watching should be able to get it. But there's a limit there where I can't quite convey in words that what I'm trying to say, the felt experience of what it's like on the other side of this, and how it's not a thing. The awakening isn't the thing. It's what you make a thing of it, and you put it somewhere else, or you conjure an idea of this kind of imagery or this kind of mystical thing that's not this. And the actual recognition, the actual awakening, is the most ordinary, normal, like pragmatic, simple thing. It's nothing. It's nothing. The implications of what's recognised, as in the inherent quality of experience itself, is what's incredible, not the awakening. The awakening isn't the thing. And the ability to point to that isn't some mystical power that you gain after awakening. The ability to point to it is like, say, it's like there's a van parking here. I'm standing on the front side of the van, and whoever's watching, if they feel like they've not had an awakening, they are standing on the other side of the van, and I'm like, there's a Fiat badge in front of the van, and I'm like, oh, here's the Fiat badge, that's what we've been looking for, here, I can see it now. I'm like, here, come round and look at the badge. And they're like, no. No, I'm too focused on something else. That's a really bad analogy. Or the one I used before is like, your glasses are on your head. Someone's walking about and they're like, where are my glasses? I'm looking for my glasses. And they're on your head. And I'm just like, I can see them, they're on your head, and they're like, no, they're over here, and you're like, what? It's kind of like that. It's not a fantastic magical thing. It's just something that's noticed. That's how simple it is. I can't stress that enough, because it's the making a thing of it that creates the obstruction, that creates the looking past something that's already inherently here. And I liken the spiritual experiences to be like, oh, I noticed my glasses, you put your glasses on, you're looking through them, and you're like, my glasses were on my head this whole time, I don't believe it. But then you're looking through the glasses now, and then you forget that they're on your face for some reason. You're like, I had this glasses experience where I found my glasses, but now I can't find them anymore. But you're actually looking through them. That's what it's like. It's wild. So with the no self thing, it's not something that can be understood conceptually. So the fixation on conceptual or cognitive understanding has to be gone in its reality completely. What the no self thing is about is direct sense, direct sensation, without then adding something to that, or adding a filter, or a step between, or a step away from the direct sense. So a step away from might be like awareness, or infinite consciousness, or awake space, or something like this. It's not something that I can convey from a position to another position in terms of understanding, because what I'm talking about is entirely transcendent of any position. So it's impossible to communicate. But what I can do, I find, is I can point towards, vaguely, I can suggest towards what it is that there is a tendency to hold on to, that prevents, let's say, the direct sense, or prevents what essentially is the anatta realization. When I point to this tendency to hold on to this, it produces a feeling. It produces it can be like a heaviness, or like a fear, or some sort of intense emotional resonance there, some emotional kind of resistance there, and that resistance is the attempt to hold on to what it is that is obstructing it, which is essentially like any position, a need to be real, a need to have some sort of continuity, to have some sort of perspective, to have some sort of stability or purpose or narrative, or did I say continuity already? The direct sense has no continuity to it. It has no form to it. It has no structure. It has no meaning or purpose. It has no background intelligence holding it all together. It's complete random indeterminacy. It's completely I'm gonna struggle here. It's not held together by anything. There's no infinite source everything is subsumed into and then emerges from. somehow tying it all together, giving it continuity. So when we let go of that is obstructing it, or when that is seen through, which is it comes into clarity by accident, because that's the only way it can. Because what I'm talking about is the fundamental basis for all positions, the fundamental basis for all points of view or perspectives or understandings. Without that, all there is what's actually here, without the subtle suggestion of there being a something else, there being like an ultimate intelligence or a ultimate background or infinite source, or infinite subject, universal subject. All there is what's directly here in terms of sense, and what's directly here in terms of sense is too free to be able to capture from any point of view of understanding, is too liberated. It is liberation. To the mind, it looks like a paradox. In the direct sense, it is complete nature. It is complete perfection. It doesn't want anything. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't need a background or a source or any form of continuity to be what it is. And in that, it is completely free. In that, you lose this tendency. So when I'm talking about this, if I'm kind of pointing directly, there might be like this fear that comes up, or this felt emotional heaviness that comes up, and then what we do is, like, after awakening, what happens is there's a kind of fallback to what makes that feel better, or what kind of averts from that sensation. And the fallback, what we fall back to is what is, pardon me, obscuring the clear realization of no self. I try and do this without saying there's no one here, there's nothing to do, and all that nonsense, because that's not helpful. I don't think. So, in the absence of want or need, in the absence of a spiritual path or a purpose, and in the absence of a longing for more clarity, a longing for completion, is completeness itself, is wholeness itself. Because we've removed the additions to experience that make it look like this isn't already complete, that make it look like there's something to get that's going to complete us. When really all we need to do is to lose the tendency to form a perspective, to view something as anything, for anything at all to actually be here, to exist or not exist. So it's the end of all opposites, the end of reality, unreality, awake, asleep, relative, absolute, emptiness and form. With that, what also ends is the distinction between anything, the ability to form a position on anything, to experience your version of reality as more awake in comparison to people, say, who are completely mind identified. Everything then becomes pure awakeness. Everything then becomes pure Buddha nature, or whatever you'd like to call it. So then there's no need. There's no need anymore. There's no path anymore. Non-duality isn't a thing. With that, we let go of the whole path. We let go of the whole seeking circuit that served its purpose, because it drove us towards questioning our experience of reality, and that was needed. But after a certain point, it becomes an obstruction, or it's revealed to be the most fundamental version of the obstruction. So, using vague concepts, I could point to what's realised after the first awakening is a more fundamental level of identity, if not the most fundamental level of identity, being infinite consciousness, infinite awareness, infinite subject. The sense of I am, I am at all. I am here, the sense of awareness, the sense of all this appearing as some aware something, or in some aware something. There is a felt realness to the, or a felt suggested realness to that awareness, that something being somehow some sort of subtle narrative quality, some sort of subtle power holding all this together, giving it a form, a structure, a purpose, a reason, giving it a somethingness. That's what drops away. That seemed to not be separate from, in immediacy, the appearance, in immediacy, the sound, the scene, the sensation, even the thought. And in that, then the distinctions between all of this disappears. Thought, form, no form, nothing, something. It all disappears. So in that absence of the ability to form a perception of something, to perceive something from any sort of subtly conceptual position, what is allowed to present itself to itself without delay, without space, without time, without reason or purpose or meaning. And in that, the actual sense heightens to a degree not imaginable. In that, what was glimpsed in the first awakening extends out to its final no-thingness, which is, it's like the whole loop of this, the spiritual path closes. The whole thing then comes to an end in some sort of way, and we can see that there was a phasing out of something that was never actually here, and that kind of had to run its course and dismantle in a certain way, in order to kind of, I don't know about this, but in order to kind of prepare for the kind of death that happens with that, the kind of end to any point of view, end to any formation of an entity, a self, something to be aware of, the something to be aware of, or the aware of being a thing separate from what's aware of it. What this is, in the absence of what gives it structure and what gives it meaning and purpose and continuity, from any point of view, is disturbing. It's disturbing because there's really a strong tendency to hold on to there having to be something, there having to be anything at all, a continuity, a purpose, a greater something, a something better that's not this, a better experience, or a more clear realization. But in terms of realization that this is final, because it's very clear that there's nothing that is this, you hear just this all the time. It's very clear that everything else was being added to that, and by this tendency to form a position or a point of view or a perspective, or a vague idea about there being something, there being anything. So any distance is gone, any separateness is gone in all aspects of the meaning. So then this is it. This is all there is, and this always was it, and you don't get out of it. You get so close to it that there's no need to get out of it anymore, or the thing that felt like it needed to get out of it was seen to never actually be there in the way that we felt it was. So this is the finality. This what's right in front of you right now without it having to be in front of you. The sense, the sensation. So in your experience right now, you can touch something, listen to the sound, observe the scene. That is anatta. That's where this ends. That's it. That's the whole thing. And then watch a tendency to move away from that, to drop back into a position of universal awareness. Or there might be like a it's really an aversion to the framing. There will be a framing, or there'll be like strange existential fears and thoughts saying, this can't be it. Am I the only thing in the universe? I had this kind of strange solipsistic. So if I'm everything, then what is the purpose? Am I just like this infinite entity floating in hyperspace? What is the purpose? What is the meaning to this? There was no meaning ever. The meaning wasn't there. It's clear that there's no meaning in the direct sense. So that comes with a terror. To know that this is, like I said, random indeterminacy. This is like the point, the infinite point where all the conditions and causes, interconnected web of infinite conditions expressing itself infinitely right now due to all these random causes, conditions with no meaning, no purpose, no source, nothing holding it all together, completely random. In that there's like it generates this kind of fear. It's like there has to be a meaning, purpose. How can I find the meaning, purpose to this? But after a certain point, it becomes clear that you see that forming of a position to try and understand, to try and orient yourself, or try and have something to orient yourself to for this to make any form of sense whatsoever. And you can see that framing, that tendency to frame, to fall back from the direct sense and think, no, wait a minute, there has to be a meaning to all this. What about, you see that not even the formed thoughts, but that function, that tendency is what's generating the fear, is what is creating the confusion, or the absence of wholeness, or the delusion, the fundamental basis of delusion. It is that tendency, and once that tendency becomes clear, it kind of plays itself out, and then it's not there anymore. And when it's not there anymore, it can never be there, and again, because it's replaced by just the direct sense, the seen, the heard, like the Bahaya Sutta, just the sense, and that's all there is. And it's clear that what the function that was making it look like there was more than that was this tendency in thought to frame, this tendency to form a position, to relate. That whole thing goes away, and it's seen that it was never actually there in the first place. It was just a transient thing that gave the illusion that it was always there, gave the illusion of this continuity. This is how I describe it, right? This is how it presented itself for me. So after the initial, this might be unpalatable, right? For those of you who have recently went through your first awakening, this might be unpalatable, right? But I'm just going to say it anyway. So after the initial awakening, there was this immense sense of homecoming, the sense of, how could I have missed this? I've come back, I've woken up, that I was lost in a dream of identification, and now I am home. And I had this transcendent of this lifetime quality, where I could feel that this had been going on infinitely. This had been going on beyond this imagined linear timeline, and I felt like the entire universe was supporting me. I had recognized myself. I felt like I had come home, and this immense feeling of gratitude and simplicity, and just pure awakeness, pure aliveness, pure pristine awareness, pure clarity. And it felt stable in a way, but there was this quality to it there, and the quality was like, this is how I describe it, it's a hard thing to describe, but you know when you smell a smell, you taste a taste, or you hear a piece of music and it reminds you of a time in your life, right? And the time in your life has some memories attached to it, maybe from childhood or something like that, but more overt as the experience, and that there's a feeling tone to it, there's an emotional memory to it, there's an emotional flavour to that experience, and there are lots of different ones and they all have their very distinct quality, and it can be triggered by senses, so something in that sense reminds you of something, and it brings on this visceral felt body sense of this emotional feeling memory. I started to notice that when the boundaries started to break down, that started to come through. So anything I looked at or anything I heard, any of the senses would bring back a different flavour of this emotional memory. And it felt transcendent of this lifetime. I don't know if it was or not, but it felt transcendent. It felt like memories of past lives or whatever. But it had that, I found a great comfort in that, because it was like I was communicating emotionally with my surroundings. There was something resonating at a deeper level that I could feel, and it was like this whole emotional landscape opened up and I could explore that and feel it, and that was supporting this whole thing. But there was a very subtle continuity tone to it. There was a very subtle narrative tone to it. There was a very subtle, there's something else here. There's something else to all this. There's something here, transcendent of this, behind all this, or somehow something else, right? So, some people think some of the things when realizing the sense of I am, this pure sense of existence, this pure sense of pure presence, and it's very expansive. It's very out with the confines of this life and this individual. That's the thing that drops away, and what of it drops away is the suggested continuity, the suggested somethingness, the suggested I'm here-ness. There's something here-ness. You know what I mean? And it feels like you're letting go of, or you see through, or it dies past lives, your soul. Like there's a great line in one of the Buddhist texts. I'm never going to be able to like verbatim quote it, but it says something like, I apologize if I butcher this, I'm just going to paraphrase it, right? It says like, when the Dharma wheel started turning, it sent like a shockwave up through the heavens, and all the deities and all the gods and stuff shuddered. And I know exactly what that means. In a way, it's a death of the soul. It's a death of the somethingness that we felt needed to be here, inherent in reality, for us to be something, and to relate to something, to live a life. What it actually is, right? It has this very strange escape mechanism where it escapes out of the confines of this body, this background substratum, and projects itself out, it did for me, out behind the sense phenomenon, somewhere else. So you're not looking where it is. It expands out, and in that way it hides. But what it was it's a body sense. It's an identification with this body, with this center point here, with this background that's like behind here somewhere, that isn't perceivable, isn't actually there, but is reified as something real, the suggestion of it, apart from the sense phenomenon. So there's a split here somewhere, there's a duality or a separation here somewhere. That's what falls away. So if anyone can get a sense of what I'm pointing to there, and when it falls away, it's completely perfect, because what it's replaced with is what is actually here anyway, and it's clear that this is it, the sense phenomenon, not separate, one sense, or a zero sense, or sense. That's all I can say now. It's just sense, no awareness apart from it or integrated into it. The sense is awareness, the sense is presence. Presence appears as the appearance. the sense. None of them distinguishable from the others. Touch versus not touch, not distinguishable. Sound versus silence, not distinguishable. Sight versus not sight, not distinguishable. Seen, sorry. Thought versus no thought, not distinguishable. And there's just nothing you can say about anything. So it's replaced with something that speaks for itself, that needs no explanation, that needs no position held separate from it in order to relate to it and understand it, because understanding is it understands itself without the need to understand, without the need for anything. So with this brought on the greatest, I can feel it a bit now, the greatest existential terror that was at the core of this whole spiritual journey, the core of this whole lifetime, the thing that needed to be solved, the thing that was just not right about reality, this deep existential misunderstanding, framing that leads to a misperception, and that there even has to be perception at all for this to be what it is. So it's just replaced with simplicity. I get the feeling I'm going to lose subscribers for this. People are going to be fresh out of their initial awakening. They're going to watch this and they're going to be like, oh no, because it's not palatable, because it's just too confusing. There's nothing to grab onto. No part of this can you grab onto. Any kind of thing that you can hold on to or say anything about is there and gone. Everything is transient, and the thing that suggests that is not transient doesn't actually exist. It's insane. But what comes through is, and it's disturbing from a point of view, it's paradoxical, it's mind-breaking from a point of view, but without that framing, without that point of view, it is just complete simplicity. It's completely just what it is, without any delay, without any separation, without any need for anything. It's needless, it's wantless, it doesn't contain... there's no problem in it. There's no better this to it. It just is what it is, and what it is complete, mysterious, free perfection. And then there's a deep... I say this, that this sounds like... I don't know if this is a point of view or not, but it seems to be the underlying quality, if anything, is like a deep reverence and gratitude and love that this even can be. Like, how can this be? Is the thing I would use. Just like, how can this be? And that's it. And that's answered with the sense. And the sense just, it's like being born and dying, being born and dying. How do you say that? Ad infinitum, infinitely, as this. It's indescribable, but it's not something that you could desire. It's not, because the very function of that desire, what that's predicated on, is this position, is this framing, is this point of view. What I'm talking about is the absence of this. So by definition, this isn't something that you can want. This isn't something that, if it were not noticed by accident, that you could desire to notice or willingly notice from a point of view, if that makes sense. But anyway, I'm gonna have to go now, so hopefully that makes a bit of sense. The comments are great recently, by the way, so I'm not sure if this will make any sense, or if anyone wants me to talk about this, although I have been asked about it frequently recently, but that's maybe just because I've been talking about it more. But let me know how it feels to hear that. I've kind of pointed to it in a soft way, because I know it can be a bit of an intense thing to hear, and if you hear it and you feel that, that's a good sign. Even if it feels not a bit disturbing. But let me know how that is, and continue with the good comments, because I'm enjoying talking to people. And I wanted to also say that, like, I'm gonna run out of time here, but what I would encourage people to do, because like I say, there is a flaw to this channel, and it's me using words to talk about it, and it's me appearing here as a apparent character. Sorry, people get annoyed at me for saying that, but as this apparent person here, right? And there's a flaw in the premise of that whole thing. What I would encourage people to do is to really become single pointed in the inquiry, and maybe go back and watch some of the videos that I did talking about inquiry, and because this kind of channel is directed by the viewers and the questions, so it can kind of be all over the place. It follows trends, but what I don't want to happen is for people to become fixated on my experience, as if I'm talking about an experience here that's something different to what you're already experiencing. And what I would encourage is people to really focus on the inquiry. Focus on the inquiry, and let me know your experience. I want to hear about your experience, for the most part. So anyway, I'll talk to you next time.